Welcome back everyone dito sa latest episode ng FYI, a Voter Education Series. Kasama natin ngayon, of course, my very good friend, Robin. Thank you so much, Dr. Garcia, for joining us today. Usually, yung mga ginagawa natin for our voter education is not necessarily live, but this one I felt dapat live kasi literally the numbers are fresh off the oven. Pag-usapan natin, what is the big picture? Ano yung mga na-survey nyo? And of course, this is a non-partisan independent survey, right?
Yeah. So thank you, Richard. Happy to be here. So Numero Research just did a press briefing this morning about the Philippine Public Opinion Monitor. Itong PPOM, ito yung ating regular survey research no, na pinapublish ng Numero Research. Yung latest namin, nilabas namin today, and it covers the period of March 31 to April 7, yung field work.
So covered yung ICC arrest ni Digong?
Covered yung ICC arrest ni Digong. This is
and
actually,
the hearings even after.
That's why itong PPOM, itong survey natin, tinignan natin yung perception ng mga tao tungkol sa ICC arrest, tungkol sa impeachment, at tungkol sa drug war, which is the object of the accusations of Duterte in the ICC. No? So, of course, aside from our pre-election surveys that tackled itong senatorial, itong party list, and yung 2028 presidency. So ito yung laman ng press briefing ng Numero Research PPOM press briefing this morning.
Okay, let's go one by one. So ano yung mga major findings? First of all, before we go to the Senate race, because katulad ng ibang survey na pinag-usapan natin, mukhang pasok at least si Bam sa Magic 12. I think that's something we have been talking about for quite some time. But let's go first dun sa contentious issues. ICC, Duterte support base, and of course, also this general issue of human rights.
So, tungkol dun sa ICC arrest ni President Duterte, no? So, merong dalawang data point na importante that we found really revealing. So, tinanong namin whether President Duterte should stand trial for crimes against humanity. Basically, yung mga kaso na hinaharap niya doon sa ICC, 52%, more than majority, of Filipinos believe that former President Duterte should stand trial on the ICC.
Even after the whole drama and the whole paawa effect.
Even after the whole drama, in fact, yung period dito, nakuha pa yung some of the Senate
undecided
hearings o doon sa yung Senate hearings natin sa Senate regarding the arrest. The last week when we were in the field, nangyayari yung
is there a study before Senate also? What was the last study you did on the ICC?
Yung last namin was February, and we asked about the jurisdiction of the ICC.
Anong numbers?
There's a sizable number of, I have to check, but there's a sizable number of Filipinos who believe in the jurisdiction of the ICC and that the Philippine government should support the ICC's investigation into the drug war. So, yung pangalawa naman namin tinanong, whether President Duterte should personally face his ICC case, no? Na siya mismo yung haharap doon sa ICC, 62% no, ang sumagot na dapat. And because this is important because there's an issue of whether he should be tried in a local court or an international court.
Which was covered by the Senate hearings.
Which was covered by the Senate. Yung issue kasi yan na kung local ba na court at yung jurisdiction, yung sovereignty ng Pilipinas ay na-tackle. Yung accusation is that the ICC does not have jurisdiction. And therefore, dapat hindi siya dinala sa The Hague. But ang sabi ng tao, 62% of Filipinos believe na dapat personally siyang pumunta sa The Hague, doon sa ICC, para humarap sa trial doon sa mga accusations sa kanya sa ICC, not just in the Philippines.
Can we deduce that, ibig sabihin yan, naniwala sila doon sa argument na we could not have relied on domestic institutions to do their job and that the hearings perhaps were not as effective in questioning yung, or pushing the narrative na kidnapping ang nangyari dito?
Yeah, so I think yung results would tell you na may legitimacy, political legitimacy in support itong International Criminal Court sa mga nangyayari sa Pilipinas, no? So, hindi naman mutually exclusive. Ibig sabihin, pwede naman siya i-try sa, multiple jurisdictions, including in local courts, kung gusto natin, right? But yung issue lang dito is kung ang ICC ay may jurisdiction at tama bang humarap si former President Duterte. And we're coming from an objective scientific perspective. We just wanted to unpack and ask this question, what people really think about the ICC arrest. And we think that we saw na resounding yung support for the ICC and its investigation in the Philippines.
So, Dr. Garcia, can you say that in a way it is also a vote of confidence in ICC as a court of credibility and reliability?
Yeah. Yes. So yung Philippine Public Opinion Monitor, we wanted to unpack this kasi we wanted to understand the procedures, diba, that's happening currently, the legitimacy of the institution itself. Right. So I think if you really extend the argument, the logic of this of the results, there's some support for the ICC as an institution. It has some legitimacy, even if we're not part of the ICC currently.
Right. What are the next ones that you want to look at? Important data.
So we looked at the EJKs, no, itong extrajudicial killings and yung the drug war, because there are multiple studies before, no, especially at the start of the Duterte presidency, that the drug war and the extrajudicial killings are legitimate and it's supported by the Filipino public. But actually, some of the results here seem to be in contrast to that assumption.
Interesting.
So, for example, ang tinanong namin whether or not we should hold President Duterte accountable for EJKs during the drug war, no? 54% of people, more than a majority, believe that President Duterte should be held accountable for EJKs. Diba? At least there should be an investigation into the EJKs, whether or not it's the ICC or a local court. But kung anong nangyari dun sa drug war, baka kailangan natin imbestigahan kasi baka hindi siya completely good for the Philippines. No? So this is
so in short, there's a recognition that something went wrong.
Something went wrong. Yeah.
Basically,
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh. So it's not really judging that the drug war was incorrect, but that currently baka tingnan natin kung may malibang nangyari, kung may foul play and things like that. And if it really did, good or harm to Philippine society and the Filipino population. So, and then, tinanong din namin, no? Kasi whether or not President Duterte himself should stand trial doon sa EJK. This is important dahil may issue na hindi naman si Duterte yung nag-order niyan eh. There are other institutions, instrumentalities of the Philippine government that were responsible, like the police, si Bato, diba? Or AFP and other institutions and organizations. So ang lumabas dito na President Duterte himself, 60% Filipinos believe that the former president himself should be the one to stand for trial and be tried and investigated for his contributions in the drug war during his presidency. So I guess if you look at these results, one, I think there's really support for the ICC, its legitimacy in the Philippines. It's hindi naman sinasabi ng Pilipino na dapat local lang. So kahit papaano dapat yung ICC meron ding papel dito. No? So may support and legitimacy for that. And that si President Duterte should himself personally go there in trial in the ICC. No? So
if you are on the side of the victims of extrajudicial killing, or even on the side of the government to a certain degree, this seem quite reassuring, shouldn't they? These kinds of surveys, at least so far.
Well, I mean, of course, the President Marcos has not yet come out supporting the ICC, so medyo they're still in the
ambivalence.
Ambivalence. So hindi pa natin alam talaga, no? But I mean, especially for the victims of the drug war, this is encouraging na kahit paano may sumusuporta sa kanila, sa mamamayan na Pilipino. The same people actually na nagsusupport din dun sa mga, kasi may nakita tayong increase dun sa mga Duterte-aligned candidates
which we'll
for 2025.
discuss next, right? But just on this issue of ICC and human rights, Dr. Garcia, what is the undecided number and what is your understanding of the undecided number? Is this swayable? Is this gonna remain undecided until, I don't know, the trial starts itself? Kasi September pa yung first pre-trial pa lang di ba? What do you see that? Is this a kind of an undecided group, how large it is, and whether it can be swayed by what is already happening here, irrespective of the trial that may take years in ICC?
Yeah, so nakita natin dito sa data na itong whether Duterte should be accountable for EJKs, 20 around 20% are not yet sure. No?
That's quite large.
It should be
1/5 of basically our people.
Hindi pa sila sigurado.
Oh, wow,
Hindi sila undecided, but hindi pa sila sigurado if they're for or against it. No?
Interesting.
Malaki rin yan.
Malaki yan. Yeah,
That's correct. No?
is a
Hindi
lot.
sila sigurado kasi marami naman talagang issues surrounding the ICC arrest, diba? Jurisdiction, sovereignty, and things like that. No? So,
Do we have any idea why are they undecided? Is it because conflicting emotions? Is it because not enough information? Or is it because they're confused by too many contradictory information and narratives?
hindi natin siya tinignan dito no? Kung bakit sila...
But as a political scientist, what is your read of that?
Well, actually, a lot of these people are... majority of these people identify as supporters of the administration. So siguro hindi pa sila sigurado dun sa ano
Dahil
nila
ambivalent
dyan.
din yung
Ambivalent
government,
din
no?
sila dyan. Oo. So siguro pag lumabas na yung si President
interesting.
Marcos, no, baka kumampi na sila. Yeah.
Interesting. So what you're saying is that the huge number of the undecided people are actually not pro-Duterte. In fact, they may even be pro-administration. But because the administration itself is ambivalent, they're also ambivalent. Therefore, if the administration becomes less ambivalent, perhaps there will be a movement also in a direction that I think we both suspect is more in support of what's happening. Right?
Yes. Oo, kasi si President Marcos nung press conference niya, he focused on the procedural, the legalities. No? So they really didn't stake their positions on this pa. Not yet, at least.
Hindi nag-resonating kasi masyadong procedural. So more principle dapat ang positioning maybe. Again, I'm sorry, I know you're here to just report the data, but of course, anyone can just look at the numbers themselves later on. Ang point natin kasi dito is we're trying to interpret this data and put it into a bigger political context. Now, let's look at the other important issue, which is political alignments. Nagkakaroon ba ng rallying effect itong Duterte arrest? It looks like, in terms of public opinion, is not having the kind of effect that perhaps the Duterte camp was hoping for. But it looks like in terms of consolidation of base, the numbers are suggesting we'll later on also have Okta survey among others. But what is your survey showing in terms of consolidation of base?
You know that's a fantastic question kasi for several months now, I think the Duterte camp has been trying to rally their supporters to go against the president. But we've seen that hindi pala ganun ka-intense yung support ng mga Duterte supporters doon sa Duterte idea.
I mean, it's like soft support?
Pwedeng, the soft support. Kasi pwedeng umakyat sila sa Senado, sa ranks dun sa Senado. Pwedeng mag-disagree sila dun sa impeachment. But they won't necessarily go out in the streets and support and rally against President Marcos. So kahit medyo bumaba yung performance review and performance assessment ni President Marcos, they're not fully dissatisfied kay President Marcos. Meron pa rin sigurong naniniwala na kahit papaano na he could be okay, no, as president.
So hindi deal breaker sa kanila yan, na triggered
breaker.
kami, ganun,
So hindi pa siya umabot dun sa level of intensity na lalabas sila that they will call for
people power, basically.
People power, si Marcos stepping down and things like that, or even a coup d'etat and things like that, no? A change of regime change or a change of government. So yun yung kailangan natin i-unpack. The level of intensity.
So what are those numbers saying?
So umaakyat sa Senate, umaakyat yung mga Duterte-aligned candidates. No?
By how much? 5 points, 10 points?
Si Senator Bongo, who is a re-electionist, at least in our survey, is now number 2. But
statistically tied almost, right?
Statistically tied
for number 1.
For number 1 with Erwin Tulfo. Before kasi hindi siya nag-play sa amin ng ganoon kataas, pero ngayon number 2 na siya. Umakyat din si Senator Bato.
Wow, that's fair. He's number 3.
Number 3 na. No?
Oh,
so,
wow.
umakyat ng
That's
5
really
places. No? And then...
how many points? 5 points.
5 points, so 38%.
7 points Bongo, 5 points Bato. That's interesting.
Yes. Oo. So, but we also saw na may staying power pa rin yung mga alyansa bets, no? So, Erwin Tulfo is part of the alyansa slate. He's still number 1. Consistent siya dyan. Merong mga umakyat, katulad ni Ping Lacson, umakyat din si Abby Binay, umakyat din ng konti. And then, si Camille Villar, ngayon, pasok na siya sa top 12 sa amin. But previously,
same din sa Okta,
WR Numero Research, correct. Oo. But there are others also who went down. No? Sila Pia Cayetano, for example, Lito Lapid, Tito Soto.
Tito Soto is much lower.
Went down.
But, pasok si Bam.
Pasok si Bam and
pasok din si Kiko. Yeah.
And actually, WR Numero reported on this even as early as February. So we were the first, I think, firm to to confirm that they're part of the Magic 12. So this is a hopeful case. I think pag nagsusolidify yung pro-Marcos, nakakakuha din sila ng konting boto dahil yung mga pro-Marcos medyo anti-Duterte. So yung mga medyo nakakakuha sila ng boto dyan, I feel, no? And I think they should definitely bank on parang medyo strategic alliance, no?
But they're down by 1 point.
And there's a percentage. Pero umakyat sila sa rank kasi may mga bumaba rin.
So basically in net effect, they still did better than others kaya umakyat sila.
But
nevertheless, they have a decline. I mean, so basically mga DDS lang umakyat.
Umakyat yung DDS.
Sila lang umakyat.
Significant yung
7 points, 5 points, which tracks with the other surveys also.
The explanation there, I think, Richard, no? Kasi maybe recency effect, yung daming publicity surrounding the ICC, surrounding the
They're always in the news.
They're always in the news.
Exposure nila, awareness nila.
So it remains to be seen whether they could really, be consistent in the next 4 or 5 weeks, no?
And of course, I mean, the open secret is, at the end of the day, when you are with the administration slate, whether officially and more importantly, unofficially, if there's secret, there's a new secret list, there's going to be a bump in the final. This is not only just a snapshot of like the race at this point. This is not going to capture that machine effect na makikita natin in the final race. So even if Bongo or Bato may be top 2, top 3 here, the final number will more likely favor some of the Alianza candidates or non-declared aligned people.
Yung bottom 6 talagang medyo masikip yung laban dyan, and it's going to be very intense. And you're right, Richard, kasi meron tayong market votes and meron din tayo yung command votes. No? So yung machinery and things that are not necessarily about just communications and strong, compelling messages.
Last point, and this is important. Let's talk about tactical voting here, right? It's controversial, but if you are for, let's say, Sara impeachment, because this Senate race is really about also Sara, right? Because the composition of the next Senate will determine if the trial will happen to begin with, kasi mukhang this is the Senate that needs 6 months to figure out what forthwith means. But it's also about whether there'll be a judicious assessment of the preponderance of evidence that many see against the Vice President. Kaya nga na-impeach na siya ng Congress overwhelmingly, right? If you are, let's say, supporter of Sara being held accountable, should you tactically vote for a combination of Alianza and combination of, let's say, BAM or Kiko or something like that? And vice versa. If you're a opposition, genuine opposition, should you be open to supporting also, again, this is not a moral judgment, it's a tactical discussion, right?
I understand.
Let's say, for instance, in your survey, I'm not sure if Camille Villar or Ben Tulfo, regardless of whatever is their designation, independent, whatever, I'm not sure those are the people who are excited about impeaching Sara or even about the trial. But I can say more confidently that if you're Bam Aquino, you'll at least look at the evidence, and probably with Kiko, you'll go for it. And if you're Tito Soto, Abi Binay, Ping Lacson, especially, I think I'm more confident that they'll also be along similar lines. Do you think that people, voters, because you have 12 options, not 2 options, not 3 options, not 4 options, 12 options. Do you think that voters should engage in tactical voting and look at the permutations accordingly? Yeah,
so if you are a Marcos supporter and you want the Vice President impeached, or at least there's a trial, and if you're a purist, pero yung numbers hindi nag-a-add up kung purely lang na wala si Bam and Kiko. So baka it would benefit itong mga Marcos supporters to also vote for Bam Aquino and Kiko Pangilinan for the Senate, na para baka matuloy yung impeachment trial after the election. So yes, so may
and
wisdom
vice versa
dyan,
too,
definitely.
right? I mean, if you're supporter of Bam and Kiko, you want as many as the Team Liwanag, whatever, to get in, but you might also want to make sure that some of the other candidates
because
there,
they have a common enemy, so baka
yun nga
dapat magsanib puwersa sila. Yeah, I mean, if you are
Common
thinking about the
cause, I would
practicality,
say common cause.
yeah, common cause.
Masyadong Game of Thrones.
Common cause.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, of course, for yung tama ka nga, yung practical, on the ground campaigning, bakit dapat mas maging flexible in that sense? Oo.
Tactical voting.
Tactical voting.
Now, you guys are also officially the ANC. You're also working together. So just for people to know that is this the first year you're doing the senators, or did you do also the previous Senate?
So we've been doing surveys since 2019.
Yes, of course, yes. Pero yung Senate, kasi I want to ask it because ang hirap daw i-predict yung Senate races. Like, I don't think anyone got the number ones right in recent history.
I mean, we also did the 2022, yes.
How was your experience from the last survey you did and the final version? Like Robin Hood Padilla, did he really come out number one in yours?
We've been pretty consistent naman. Of course, the gold standard is the face-to-face surveys. No? So
Right.
in terms of our methodology, we do, in terms of proportionality to the Philippine population, syempre tinatanong lagi yung methodology, we always refer to the 2020 census, Filipino census, published by the Philippine Statistics Authority. Before 2020, there was earlier versions, 2016, 2015. No? So we always refer to that to make sure that our statistical interventions are really proportioned to the Filipino population. So we're very, very cognizant of correct methodologies. And in fact, this survey, we have a plus-minus 2% margin of error, and we have almost a 2,000 respondent for this survey. And so, yeah, we're pretty confident that at least for this a snapshot of the last 2 weeks, our survey reflects the sentiments of the Filipinos.
And how do you see your surveys juxtaposed with the other surveys interfacing? I mean, not too much difference, right? Also, Bongo, Erwin are number one. I don't see Amy Marcos there. Did she also drop big time in yours?
Yes. So
okay.
Amy Marcos is not part of our top 12. Yeah.
Where is she? Like top 20? Like, do you have a number of the next list? Yeah.
So
okay.
she
Can we
is
look at that? Okay. So Manny
15 to
Pacquiao.
17.
Okay, that's also the same. Manny Pacquiao also had a decrease.
Manny
Actually,
Pacquiao
ang taas ng
decreased to
decrease ni
14.
Manny Pacquiao sa lahat ng service. Is it because
Totoo
parang
yan.
wala siya sa... He's just not in the...
Siguro,
in the
nakampante siya kasi presidential candidate siya and he's riding on his popularity.
Yeah.
And he's not really... But we'll see. He could still win and, he could still increase in the next few weeks.
Interesting. So, again, we also see here, Philip Salvador is the other dark horse, di ba? Jimmy Bondoc also had an increase.
Also,
Basically,
one of the biggest gainers.
even Kiboloy.
But he's in the bottom.
But Philip Salvador is an interesting case, right? He's now higher than Amy Marcos and Willie Revillame in your survey. That's interesting.
Quite dramatic surge
Quite
actually
dramatic.
in a lot of the mga
Is it
Duterte
because of the
alliance
budots
voters.
I did? Just yung mga nagsabi na parang lalo mo pinasikat. Just kidding. He's doing very well. I think Philip Salvador is the dark. Everyone asks me who's the darkest. I would say Philip Salvador. You know, he might do a Robin Hood Padilla, maybe not number one, but he could be very competitive.
Yeah, so the trend is upward.
Yeah.
If they continue, then he could actually be part of the top 12.
All right, I won't ask more questions kasi baka mapahamak kayo, but I'll have Senator. I'll have Secretary Ronald Llamas to break down some of this issue. We're also gonna have Professor Ranjit Rai from Octa naman to also break their numbers. I see a lot of overlaps and similarities. Of course,
Correct.
no two surveys will be exactly the same. I think Pulse Asia and SWS also came out recently.
Came out recently.
What do you think
Actually,
about?
we're quite consistent na pasok na si Bam Aquino and Kiko Pangilinan.
But
And there's also an increase in the Duterte aligned candidates. So
we see-
consistent yun across all the surveys.
Okay, so that means na in fairness, di ba?
So the race is getting really interesting.
Interesting, and the surveys are actually triangulating each other.
Correct,
So yung
correct,
mga, hindi, bayaran nito na ganito kasi ganito. Guys,
Yeah.
grow up. I mean, there's no, OPEC monopoly na they will coordinate their quota. And all. It doesn't work that
Yeah,
way.
it
You're
doesn't work that way.
competitions.
Yeah, exactly.
You're competing against each other.
Exactly.
You have no interest in coordinating numbers or anything like
Exactly.
that. On that note, thank you very much, Dr.
Richard.
Garcia, for that very
Thank you very much.
fascinating,
Maraming salamat.
very
Thank you.
compact discussion. And my best wishes also to your colleague Cleve, because I know you're carrying the day for Cleve as he recovers.
Yeah.
We'll also try to have Professor Cleve Arguelles with
soon.
us soon. Maybe tomorrow on Zoom if ever not in person to further discuss some of these issues. Kasi ikaw yung more respectable version, siya yung medyo more bardugulan. No, I'm just kidding. No,
naman.
but he's also the geeky guy. We'll do vibe check
Yeah.
with him soon. Thank you so
correct.
much, Robin.
Maraming salamat.
And
Thank you.
talk
Thank
to you
you.
soon. Maraming salamat, guys. Thank you very much, guys, again for joining us dito. Ito, fresh off the talagang oven na talaga. Yung data, our guest just finished his press briefing kanina. I'm sure ang daming mga tanong sa kanya. Again, nothing surprising because it really very much echoes what we were seeing in all authoritative surveys. So please lang, stop with that. Bayad yan, ganyan. Grow up, alright? Huwag tayo mag-Google Analytics. Alright? Although, may silbi naman ang Google Analytics. I mean, nakita nyo yung HDI, napaka well-researched because of me last month, yung Human Development Index. But kidding aside, thank you very much, guys. And as I said, may pag-asa talaga. Di ba? Both Bam and Kiko, ang laki ng chance sila. And if my secret last-minute realignments, baka mas interesting pa yung mga mangyayari. But without spilling more beans, I'll leave those beans to Sir Ronald and our other guests. Catch us again on our next FYI Voter Education Series. Salamat, God bless, and God bless the Philippines.